So we're talking about the foreign direct investment and how um, how it happens, and from the host perspective and from the corporation perspective, what are the pros and cons the um, of the foreign direct investment? So, and on Monday we talked about how or why the host countries want to have the foreign direct investment, and we went through several reasons. And today we're going to talk about why the reasons why they don't want it. So the FDI obviously brings money. It's a capital investment. It creates income for the local community, and it's not just through that business, but the ripple effect that business actually provides. So, for instance, for a car manufacturing facility, that factory will hire people to work in them. Yes, However, just the very fact that the factory will need suppliers, and many of them can be local, and these suppliers will create employment, will create income, will create taxes for the local community. FDI usually brings or builds infrastructure. This is more of a case for emerging countries or developing countries where the infrastructure is needed and costly, and the local country or the government cannot provide it, or don't have the resources, or don't see it as you know, as a priority, and therefore the FDI helps build the regions that are usually underdeveloped. The foreign direct investment obviously pays local taxes, payroll taxes, sales taxes, and any relevant taxes. So it creates income for the local governments. FDI also brings technology. We talked about how, for instance, Tesla, partnership with the Panasonic for lithium-ion battery technology. The idea was, when Tesla Gigafactory was permitted to be built on a land in Arizona, Tesla was asked to donate, I think, $20 million to the local university for their engineering department for electrical vehicles, or electric vehicles, or and/or the battery development. So, the FDI brings technology to the local country, the local government, local community. FDI educates. FDIs need local people to work for them, and then therefore they need these people to be trained and educated in their production, in their sales techniques, in their research and development. So FDI usually invests in people by educating them, and by immersing them with their own education systems. FDI brings competition, and obviously FDI brings international integration. And this is one of the most important aspects of FDI, and why host countries do want to have FDI. For smaller countries, it's utmost importance to have this international integration in their or for their country, and therefore, an FDI is an excellent opportunity to attract greater or bigger economies, or greater economies, to integrate with these smaller economies, and that also brings that unification of economies into the global scheme. So, what would be the reasons why these countries wouldn't want to have the FDI? So, and obviously, any one of these areas that we talked about, uh, might actually have the flip side of the coin. But I think the most important one is FDI brings competition. So, I mean, if you think about it, the competition is good. It actually creates better products, better technology, and it makes companies more efficient, more effective, and therefore, for consumers' perspective, competition is good. However, for many, say, retail many industries, example, retail, competition can actually be quite detrimental. So I took a trip to Vermont about a decade ago and considering a job up there. And I've noticed that there were not that many Walmart in the Birmingham area in Vermont. So I started asking like why that's not the case. And in fact, the only Walmart that we found, they didn't actually sell groceries. And it was really weird to me that you walk into Walmart and it's just a very limited, almost like a corner shop, and they were just not allowed to expand. And the answer was really interesting. They said that these large companies, large retail companies, kill the co-ops, mom and pop shop or smaller local, um, enterprise. And it does make sense. Larger companies come in and they can actually, lower the prices until local competition disappears. And then once, they have the entire monopoly, they can simply go back to their own increased rates and increased prices and start dominating. And if this is the case for a state in the US, and imagine what smaller countries can have to or would have to endure when larger companies come into their country. So, in my opinion, or in my experience, this is more of a case for retail companies, but I can see how this can be also quite detrimental for manufacturing, communications, research. I mean, imagine if um, a pharmaceutical giant start operations in a small country. The research and development budget of a pharmaceutical company can actually be more than the research development budget for the entire country. I mean, it just so very similarly with manufacturing, operations like car manufacturing or industrial manufacturing. The resources of multinational corporations can outweigh or can outbid the local enterprise significantly, and that would actually, simply, you know, devalue or destabilize the industry. We have seen this also in 2010, 2009 in Greece, when Greece was in financial trouble. Many of the local banks had to be sold to international larger banks, and their economy actually suffered because of this, because they had either just a few or not at all uh, banks that either were foreign or foreign dependent. And in a way, they lost their financial independence, and they lost their financial, um, you know, um, well, competitiveness, especially in the banking area. So FDI brings competition, can be a pro, but also definitely can be a con. So FDI also can be influential. So this again is you know can be perhaps um, subgrouped. One of the main reasons everybody thinks that FDI comes into a country is for cheap labor, which can go both ways. So I want to say labor law, um, environmental laws, and etc. Right. So maybe we should also include etc. The idea is that you want the business, you want the employment for your people in your country as a government. However, you also want the certain laws to be respected. You also expect international countries to be respectful to your people, and your people to have decent lives. And this may not be the case from an FDI perspective. I mean, if their main idea is to be there, is to take advantage of it, then why should they actually listen to any laws that you have? Sorry for the pause. There was this light coming and couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and sorry. So anyhow, we were talking about the environmental laws and labor laws and how the FDI may not respect these laws, or they may be in the country just because they thought their laws are a little bit less requiring than their own domestic labor or environmental laws. So they may be taking advantage of these, labor issues or environmental issues, and that's why the host country may not want the FDI in their country. So even though the FDI has all these benefits, sometimes the FDI is just there because it is in their best interest and not the host country. After all, businesses are not charities, and they are only after their own benefits and not to help, any other company or any other country. However, obviously, the countries has to protect themselves to such um, interests. So what else? The FDI um, can be politically involved. So this is an issue in which the FDI can actually create certain issues. And I want to expand on this a little bit. So, for instance, um, like in China, there are A-type stocks and B-type stocks, and one of the distinction is in some countries, for security purposes, foreign companies are not allowed to participate. We're not allowed to buy them out. So, for instance, communications, utilities, infrastructure, foreign companies are excluded. And this is quite universal. When you have a communication company who comes in and buys your communication network, then the idea usually is, are you sacrificing your national security for the purpose of bringing in an FDI? And this was discussed, during the Margaret Thatcher time when England wanted to privatize communication networks, British Airways, their national, road network, and all that. So, and after 1991, the USSR split up, and we have these Eastern European countries who are privatizing pretty much everything. The same issue arose, like how safe do you feel when a foreign company provides your electricity, when a foreign company provides your water or gas or your railroad structure or your communications? And so, we want to say safety, and this safety goes obviously say, when you want foreign company to provide you water, the safety of drinking water, or gas, the safety of gas delivery or electricity, reliability of the electricity network. So the safety, but also you're talking about, say, national safety. So, the FDI might be in that country to learn certain technologies. Like, for instance, there's an embargo to Iran for nuclear power. And if an Iranian company would like to invest in the US through an FDI to learn the nuclear, technology, this may not be welcome, obviously. And therefore, the FDI can be politically involved to achieve certain goals. And these goals may not be in the best interest of the whole country. And we have seen in the past that the FDI can bribe their way in and bribe their way into certain areas, certain niches that they're not supposed to be involved in. And sometimes, when billions of dollars are at stake, this may not be in the best interest of the country. So, and then FDI can be taking, well, let me just, instead of like spelling it out, I should just say FDI and natural resources. So this is really, one of the issues in FDI. Say for oil industry, you actually have these oil companies come in and they provide you with their technology, with their equipment, and with their know-how. So, for instance, for a company to start drilling in, say, in Iran or in Iraq, they have significant resources, natural resources, oil. but they don't have the financial capability or the know-how or the equipment or the technology to either to explore or to drill or to pipe or to refine, but they have the natural resources. So this is quite common when you have the foreign companies, either from US or France or Italy or England, um, or other countries or Norway, who are quite prominent in oil trade, to come in and to offer the local country a percentage of the resources, and then do the drilling, piping, refining, and all that in collaboration with the country. So, for instance, if they go in 50-50, the foreign company would come in, they would actually use their own money, their own investment, their own technology, equipment, and then they would start drilling the natural resources. So, from a host country perspective, this depends on the country, but this may or may not be welcome because it may not always be the best deal the country is getting. It may be much cheaper for the country to acquire such technology, such know-how. I mean, obviously, you can hire people and create these companies or buy these companies out. I mean, so the natural resources can be used or refined or mined significantly more efficient. And we have seen issues like this for, say, gold mining, um, where the resources are again split with the miners. And but however, there are environmental issues with the, searching with cyanide and stuff like that. So that makes it a little bit more complicated. And yet, still, the FDI may not be, welcome to share the natural resources just because they are actually, have the technology. However, the host country may not have a choice, and just working with another country may be pretty much the only way that they can actually have access to their own natural resources and turn it into cash. The assignment that we have for this week, by the way, is an example of this. I want you to read what happened in about a decade ago, and maybe not spoil the news. There are a few articles that I'd like you to read, and one of them is about these natural resources and how the host country accepted a deal, and then there was a election and a new government took power, and they literally reneged on that contract and capitalized or nationalized the agreement and all the investment that were made. And what recourses does the FDI have in this situation is really interesting. I assigned an older case simply because now we can look at it and in 2020 hindsight and see what happened and see what recourses the FDI or the investing corporation had, if any, and then basically see that the host country has lost significant reputation, significant investment, potential investment. But on the other hand, the FDI, the investing corporation, also lost significant money and investment and time. So what else? Well, the FDI can also have historical issues, right? So, I mean, it again depends, but in Africa nowadays, there's a significant discussion that China is becoming more and more a dominant investor for the area. And this is concerning the Western world simply because they don't want China to have such international influence on an overall. So, from an historical perspective, you also have issues such as past alliances and past colonies investing in each other, and then the developed nations investing in developing or underdeveloped nations who were their past colonies, and these can also have issues, or maybe I should say historical and cultural, right? So these could actually become significant issues. I mean, um, there are international foes, international allies, and these sometimes flows go back decades. I mean, I cannot imagine an American FDI being welcomed in Iran or American FDI in Venezuela or some other country where America has not been an ally. Very similarly with colonial past. If you look at England and countries where England has been a colonizer, then you'll see that while the investments are always welcome, there are always historical issues that needs to be considered. There are also obviously cultural issues. There are cultures that are significantly, similar, and there are cultures that are significantly different. With an FDI, while the money is of most concern, obviously, but longevity is also a significant concern, and therefore the cultural issues has to be considered. Um, so, like from an American perspective, um, American investments consider, the return and how safe and how doable and sustaining and long term the investment can be. But they also have to consider the cultural issues, cultural impact that the FDI will have on the host country, and host country has to consider this as well. So even think about like Domino's pizza in Japan, where when Domino's first came about, the delivery system or eating at home was not, or get something delivered to eat at home was not part of the culture. And at the beginning, I remember that it was a significant issue. Very similarly, when we have retail companies like Walmart or Carrefour, um, having retail operations in countries where uh, the smaller, more rural areas are more prominent. The cultural issues become an issue, or they become problems. So from a host country perspective, some FDI can become paradigm that change or that have a significant impact on their own culture, and they might want to consider the implications of these cultural uh, potential impacts. Um, Again, from a from a host country perspective, FDI, I want to say finally, but I'm sure I come up with so many more. But these are all I have in my notes. That I took some from the textbook and I took some from my own experience. But FDI can also have, um, this actually goes towards the competition, but FDI can also have, um, well, negative impacts on um, international integration. So how this is so, well, the one of the reasons that we want the FDI is that we believe that the FDI will increase our integration internationally. However, once one FDI comes in, and if they're really big, then they might actually drive others out, which may become your country can actually become more dominant for certain country FDIs, or certain regional FDIs, or certain industry FDIs, and then all of a sudden that you become less integrated simply because one or two FDIs dominate. They become monopoly. So, in a lot of the cases, we look at, say, in China, the FDI is, about manufacturing, about, the supply side of the manufacturing process, but, in a different way, perhaps it had an impact on the service industry. It had an impact on, um, energy industry. It may have an impact on their, research and development, since, the FDI is almost always bringing this technology to produce. So, perhaps China is large enough to attract these variety of FDIs, but if you're looking at smaller countries, the FDI may be focusing only on natural resources like oil or natural resources like gold mining, or say in South Africa, natural resources of the area. And that doesn't really leave much for any other FDI for the country, perhaps not necessarily because they're driving them out, but because it may be that they are not, they don't really need to seek out other um, FDI. I mean, they have enough resources now that they're simply not taking the political or legal steps to welcome more variety of FDI, and that might actually include, or lower the amount of integration that they're hoping to get. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate you guys working with me. On Friday, we'll talk about corporations, why they want to have international foreign direct investment, and why wouldn't they want it? And then that will be the end of our discussion for foreign direct investment. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys working with me, and I look forward to seeing you all. And thank you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Bye now.